We're live from Dime Square, New York City, NFL Week 13 betting market outlook with Deep Value Better and Throw the Damn Ball. Let's dive into it. Let's recap a little bit. We had another really good week in live betting. For those on the screen, you can see a little bit of the bets that we made this week. We also finally had a good bounce back in Circa, went 4-1, still hanging around about 50%, at 50% now. We had Jacksonville, Browns, Bengals, Jets, cash. And then with a really frustrating loss with the Falcons at the plus 4.5, obviously fumbling away the game there at the 1 yard line. If you were watching our game trade live stream, you would have seen me get extremely frustrated over that one and pretty much pout about it for like a good 15 minutes.
As it should be.
Also, because we had a live trade on the Falcons. It was intended to be a swing trade, and then we kind of got stuck with it all the way up until the end. A pretty decent price. I mean, it was like Falcons plus 215 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a trade early in the game. What, they were down 7-0 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's not
maybe it was like down by a field goal. Yeah. And so we got them at attractive pricing. They got the ball back. They went down the field, scored a touchdown, took the lead. The price came back down to like pick them, or maybe the Falcons even went out to -1.
Yeah.
But we didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like, let's like wait for like one more.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a fine pricing, and like the trade also at the time, if you like go back, it's like it's gonna be a back and forth style game. And look, I mean, they had the ball in position to win at the 3 yard line with a minute left. Like that was kind of the coin flip game I thought it was gonna be, and you got it at plus 230. But in some ways, that was a lot of what Sunday was. Learned some valuable lessons. Right, the Joe Burrow rushing prop. You had the prop until.
Why'd you even remind me? I forgot about it.
I'm sorry, but like that's the sort of thing where lost a couple of those. Right. For some reason, it was a bad mistake to take the T. Higgins receptions as opposed to the receiving yards. Kind of bad props. But all that is to say, I bet the Browns plus 1,300. None of that matters when you hit on a tails bet like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it's like, I wasn't even so frustrated that I lost a bunch. Who cares that my record was losing because I hit on a 13-1 bet. And that was glorious. I almost got it at 17-1, but I wasn't quick enough.
Yeah. No, and that's always something that we've talked about in previous streams as well, is your live betting. Usually, our live betting win percentage is going to be pretty lackluster, but it's mostly because we're taking these deep out of the money bets that are plus money, plus 150, plus 200, plus 300, plus 800, plus 1,300, like you're talking about. And that makes up for all of it and more than, but it still doesn't prevent, at least me, from still getting mad around any that we lose, specifically that I feel like were bad trades. Because obviously you always want to try to improve your process, improve your decision-making. And all these weren't necessarily bad. The Burrow one wasn't bad. And even the Falcons one, it wasn't bad. I'm just talking like, it just got me really frustrated. Because, to your point, we basically got them at plus 200, and it came down to them on the 1 yard line. And if they were halfway competent, they would have pushed it in.
Yeah.
And for those who, again, weren't following the game trade or weren't aware of Joe Burrow's rushing yards prop, we had eclipsed the threshold to win the bet by just enough. What was it? By like 2 yards. 3 yards.
The only thing that couldn't happen was 3 knees.
3 knees.
And roughing the kicker.
And there was also multiple scenarios had to happen for them to even get to the kneeling scenario. Bengals kicked the field goal, like went up by a touchdown, then they're gonna have to kick it back to the Titans, And then the Titans would have to like quickly go 3 and out or something of that variety to really get into a 3-kneel scenario. But of course, the Titans, I forgot what they did. Roughed the kicker or something.
The kicker, yep.
And then gave the Bengals a new set of downs, 3 kneels from Joe Burrow, and then pushes our rushing prop under. Super frustrating. We saw the writing on the wall too.
It was exactly. I like saw it happening, and I was like, "Please open the rushing under prop," but that did not happen. But look, that's the kind of variance that swings, right? You lose a bet on the Falcons, you lose a bet like Burrow.
Actually, another one was the Michael Carter.
And Michael Carter got hurt.
Michael, like almost as soon as we got and then in Michael Carter's proxies, came in and they had great games.
Yep.
What would have otherwise been Michael Carter touches?
Yeah, at least some of his production
easily eclipsed these bets as well. So that's actually 3 that just went really sideways for us.
Yeah.
And we're really kind of honing into the ones that went wrong. But again, this was still, again, one of our best weekends that we had, in fact. Not necessarily from the props perspective, but Panthers, Broncos, all under. Dolphins, Texans, we had under 53.5. Chargers, plus 4.5, plus 7, plus 180, plus 320. Saints, 49ers, alt unders, under 35.5, plus 210, under 26.5. plus 330, under 37.5. Later in the day, also, we took a Pacheco over prop that cashed. We did Chiefs Rams under 42.5 cashed. And then again, Bucks Browns under 50.5, Browns plus 320, Bengals plus 3.5, and then Browns again plus 1,300, which you got. Also got Bengals plus 196, Bengals plus 211 on the money line. So like all of those, as you can see, like just clearly mopped up.
Oh yeah.
It's like, but still those one-offs.
It just hurts. Still hurt. But that's the important thing to separate. What makes the money versus what hurts.
Yeah. So yeah, another good weekend live betting. Definitely encourage everyone to join. I know everyone, it's the holidays as well, and not everyone can necessarily watch all the games. Like we do, and necessarily trade them and have your account open and all of that. But it's just a ton of fun. Again, it's stressful, it has anxiety, but it's fun, especially doing it together, and especially when others in the chat pop in and provide some trade ideas. Arjun does all the time. Darnell does.
Dan does.
Dan does. Yeah. It's great to have those contributors in there.
For sure. And look, it's fun. I can speak for myself. It's very fun to make fun of me. I have a blast watching the replays of myself talking. I can only imagine how fun it is in real time.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Okay, so let's move on to recapping our NFL Week 12 Drive Quality Model scoreboard. Anything stick out to you here, Judah? One of the ones that I called out in our tweet this week was Patriots-Vikings. Patriots 28 earned points to Vikings 27 earned points. That just, again, gives me more and more confidence around the efficacy of this model and really fleshing out what it is we want it to do, which is, again, capturing on a drive-by-drive basis, really understanding how this team performed on the field, even if the score doesn't necessarily represent it. And I think for most who watched this game, the eye test would tell you, hey, the Patriots played better than the Vikings. And the Patriots, quote unquote, should have beat the Vikings. And in fact, that's exactly what our drive quality model is telling us, with, again, the Patriots outscoring the Vikings from an earned points perspective.
Yeah. No, I second that. Also, the one that stood out is the Bucks and Browns, which I think the Browns are probably the better team, as crazy as it sounds, and I've been beating the drum for a while, but at least I can back it up here. And just even that, like, the time weighted average probability, like, still has the Browns on top. It wasn't just that our metric has it, but like, just
that's true.
It just hard the objective fact of the game had it as the Browns that way. I mean, others to note is like how close the Dolphins-Texans game was by our drive quality. And granted, the Dolphins took out Tua and the offense real early, but right in most people's minds that was a blowout, and certainly by our time-weighted average probability, it was a massive blowout just because the score was run up so quickly. But that game was actually pretty close.
Yeah.
At least
and actually that corresponds as well with, I know, Kevin Cole from PFF does his adjusted scores, and we have different methodologies, and we're not really kind of even aiming for the same target per se and what we're really trying to achieve here. But I know even in his adjusted scores, the game was actually much closer than the final score really indicated.
17-6.
Yeah. So this, matches up pretty well, which basically just goes to show, and I don't think necessarily a lot of people necessarily are getting even more hyped on the Dolphins after this per se, but I don't think it's necessarily a time to really, I don't think the Texans are untouchable, unbettable. I think especially in the second half, they showed they can move the ball, especially if a team's going to relax versus them, then they're capable of still putting points up on the board, which means if you're getting a really juicy price from them, especially live, I mean, this was one we didn't even touch. We didn't even sniff it. I don't even think we even mentioned it from as far as even flirting with potentially taking Texans. Again, we took that under 53.5 once it kind of exploded to the upside, which it did end up kind of almost flirting with losing, but that was a nice juicy premium we captured there. But the Texans had moved all the way out to plus 31 live. And what I would say is, even versus a team like the Dolphins, or especially if it's a team that we know or that we have confidence in has a propensity to relax in the second half off of a pretty large blowout, I think you can have confidence in the Texans being a type of team that can put points up in the board. And we've seen them do that actually frequently throughout the season as well. So looking at the Texans getting plus a ton of points live after potentially getting crushed in the first half, something you want to look out for.
For sure.
Another thing, the last thing I would probably say about looking at our drive quality scoreboard is Jags 30 earned points to Ravens 28 earned points. So a nice kind of legitimate win there. Time weighted average margin -2. So we're still, obviously competitive in that game. Despite kind of looked like there was pretty long odds there near the end. Looked like Ravens kind of pulling away, a classic Jags kind of collapse in the end. I know you had to bounce for a wedding near the end of the early afternoon slate. And one of the things I was talking on the live stream that I didn't capitalize on but that I talked about was, I feel like this is not priced right, which was the Jags were plus 1,700 going into that final drive versus the Ravens, that they ended up going down the field and getting the 2-point conversion. And of course, that still would be relatively long odds. But knowing the Ravens' history, all right, and this is something that they have a pattern of doing, it wasn't 17-1 odds.
Yeah, and especially if you can get 2-point conversion possibilities, which probably increases your chances relative to overtime. And knowing that certain teams will do that, actually, probably the Ravens would do that on the other side, is also definitely something to consider, because those moments are going to come up again. In the same way that the Browns were down 1,700, right? A team that has the ball left, we're down by 7 with a minute or two left and driving, that's the price it's going to be, 1,700. And pay attention to team tendencies, and you got to be very, very sharp and very quick to execute that plan.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, last thing I would say is Bengals Titans 24-24.
Yeah.
So I know that actually there has been some positive steam in the media and other betting analysts kind of coming out of this game, being surprised by the Bengals' performance, capturing another win, doing it without Jamar Chase. And in fact, from a drive-by-drive quality perspective, it looks like this game was actually much closer. We looked at the time-weighted average win probability also. Titans, 54%. And that makes sense of why we even were able to get such juicy Bengals money line live. And this is another thing why I think it's one of the reasons why we can bet live so well is, and when you're watching the games, you're betting live, you're experiencing the risk viscerally. Right? You get to understand like the heartbeat of these teams, how they operate over the course of the game. Because I feel like the main takeaway from this Bengals-Titans game has been like, wow, I guess the Bengals really are that good. As if like the Bengals were just clearly the better team versus the Titans. And it was an easy bet to make.
No.
And it wasn't.
No, certainly not. It was a difficult one. But I will say, our draft quality has had the Bengals in the top 5
very high
for weeks and weeks. That it's almost been forecasting kind of this Bengals emergence that everyone is now talking about.
Yeah, and we bet the Bengals a ton this year, and we bet the Bengals a ton live. Again, drive quality giving us the confidence actually to lean into them when they are in deficits and being able to get them at those attractive prices. Yeah, we've definitely been ahead of the curve when it comes to pricing Bengals from a broader kind of season perspective. Right now, as we look at the 2013 or the 2022 Week 13 consensus market power rankings, looking at drive quality, has the Bengals there still as a near top 5 team.
Downgraded a little, but only I think because they were surpassed by some big performances. It's very close there.
Yeah. From a broader industry analyst perspective, biggest 1 week changers. A lot of people impressed by the Steelers' performance. And I feel like this is also kind of bleeding off kind of the back-to-back, pretty good performances from the Steelers as they kind of put in another good performance for even the Bengals in a losing effort.
The offense looks okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think they're just not as bad as I think when we were watching this game together and how the Steelers could be a good example, especially a team being led by a rookie quarterback with a rookie wide receiver and a lot of young players also still kind of beat up, dealing with injuries, but still well coached, can evolve over the course of the season. And even though they're not a good team, they can continue to be less and less of a bad team over time. That makes intuitive sense. And I think we're starting to see some of that play out. Drive quality is still not convinced. Drive quality still has the Steelers ranked 31st out of 32 teams. And that's a market low. The next one even close to us is ESPN at 28th.
Right. Though I would be curious how it looks over the past couple of weeks, kind of as they found their form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Elsewhere, no real other upgrades this week. Jags were upgraded 2, Browns were upgraded 2 spots, a flurry of 1s. Panthers, Giants, Lions, kind of pretty much anybody that just won. Some of the biggest downgrades is on the other side of that Steelers matchup, the Colts. Colts downgraded 4 spots now to 25th overall from a consensus market power rankings perspective. Saints downgraded 3 spots, Rams down 3, Ravens down 2, Seahawks down 2, and then a flurry of 1s, Vikings, Patriots, Cards, Bears. And then from an overall kind of rankings perspective, not much movement in the top 5, top 6. Again, Ravens down 2 now to 7th overall. Dolphins at 8, Bucks at 9, and then Titans still sitting there as a top 10 team, even after the straight up loss to the Bengals. We're sitting there near a market low from drive quality perspective, ranking the Titans 16th. Again, broader consensus market power ranking 10th, with 538 a market high at 7th. How are you kind of thinking about the Titans? I know we started off the season very low, and we've evolved that thinking over the last couple of weeks, but how are you thinking about them now?
Yeah. So I'm definitely not as low as I was on them early in the season, but I do not buy this top 10 ranking. This is something I talked about last week. Just that, like, the Titans really have struggled against good teams and have beaten the bad ones. I think they're like 1-4 against teams with winning records. That one win being against Washington with Carson Wentz after scoring a game-winning touchdown, and then like we were watching this game on Game Trade. Carson Wentz tried to throw 3 straight interceptions or something, and finally got picked off on the third, like at the goal line. They like barely edged out a win against like a bad commies team, at least at the time. So I don't see them as particularly impressive. I think they're like middle of the pack and can beat teams worse than them. Probably you're not going to be able to kind of punch above their weight. And I think we'll see that with the Eagles this week. And honestly, I'm not so sold they're going to win the division. I think.
No, still not ripping up the Jags.
I was going to say the Jags have a long way to go, but especially after they play them next week. Yeah, I'm not ripping up Jags tickets yet. And last year at this time, I was actually coming around to the Titans. And I wrote a whole thing about how I think they're a good, futures bet, 20-1. They ended up winning the AFC. I do not feel the same way this year. They just don't have the same, efficiency frame where they're not that good of a team. They're really coasting off of an easy schedule right now.
Yeah, Browns right outside the top 10 at 11, up again 2 spots now. Deshaun Watson coming back, drive quality at 13th, which is again pretty in line with market consensus. Standard deviation 3 spots. ESPN at a market high at 9, 538 a market low at 16th. How are you thinking about Browns now with Deshaun Watson coming back, or kind of like wait and see?
I mean, it's definitely a big wild card. He hasn't played football in 2 years. Although I will say the delta between Watson and Brissett probably won't be that huge. Only because Brissett's actually been pretty good. He's probably been like smack about league average. And sure, Watson has the potential and the ceiling to get to, a top 5 quarterback. And that's especially valuable in today's NFL climate where we really don't have so many of those quarterbacks. But I think realistically, it's maybe a bit of an upgrade, but it can't be too huge unless he immediately finds form. And like, we'll know if he's putting up, 300-yard, 4 touchdown passing games right off the bat. But I'd be pretty surprised if that happens.
Yeah, I would say I think you can get a little bit of premature excitement here after this first week, kind of like as I anticipated with the Jets-Bears game with Mike White coming in. Like, this is the perfect setup for him to look awesome. And then everyone's going to be like, oh, Mike White.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a perfect setup for Deshaun to come in, play versus Houston in a stadium that he's already very familiar with playing in. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to be like a raucous, I guess somewhat raucous crowd. Probably not super raucous. Just a lot of booze.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he'll feed off that in some, sinister way.
Yeah.
And he could put in a good performance versus Houston. And then after that, I think it's kind of like a dead cat bounce. And you're going to have a lull of, I'm not even sure who the Browns play next week, but I'm sure unless it's the Bears, it's not going to be as bad as Houston from a defense perspective. And you're going to get some clunky performances. But I imagine that, after 2-3 games, he should slowly start to come into form. But exactly from what you said is the dude hasn't played in multiple years now. We don't necessarily know who he is anymore. I mean, he's still relatively young, of course, but still going through a lot, obviously, in his personal life. And what we saw in the preseason wasn't anything to write home about.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I just think the key point is that, like, if you took the Madden grades of Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson, there'd be a massive delta, but that's not exactly the case of what Brissett's production has been on field this year. He's been really good. And I think you're right. We're going to need a bunch of games, and I'm not sure the Browns are going to be playing meaningful ones in, 2-3 weeks for this to really be relevant.
That's true too.
But we'll see. Definitely. Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of interesting storylines this week, and that's certainly one to watch.
Yeah. And I also want to see what Deshaun, have you looked at his rushing props at all? If they're already pricing
they're
in
not,
like a lot of,
I don't think they're open yet.
Yeah. Because that's something I would want to look at. If it's too high, then I'll probably just lay off. But of course, Deshaun's going to be way more prone to run the ball than someone like Jacoby, even when he's comfortable. But I think especially because he's not necessarily going to be comfortable, he's going to defer to running more often than I feel like maybe he even naturally otherwise would in this game specifically, or at least over these first few games.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair take.
And from the bottom of the barrel, we look at the consensus market power rankings. Texans at a consensus 32, standard deviation 0, 32 across the board, including drive quality.
It's been this way for a while. And I mean, look, I think last week suggested they're not totally dead, but at the same time, their coaching tendencies do kind of suggest they're thrown in the towel, right? It's the like lack of aggression, lack of playing with pace when down. But yeah, I mean, you always want to sell on a team's 32nd. Though the case is becoming at least a little bit harder considering the circumstances and just being late in the season for a team that really has no interest in winning.
Yeah, I think that's a good call, that they're probably not too interested in putting together a game plan, especially in the second half of games or late in games, to try to be creative, to try to actually come back and win or to sustain a lead or whatnot. But I do think that they're playing in the sense of trying to evaluate players. So it's like, oh yeah, maybe you should be picking up the pace in the second half if you're down 3 touchdowns, and they're not. But it's because it's like they're not even playing for that game scenario. They're playing for like a neutral state and just trying to evaluate players on the field, perhaps. Or this is a total like dead man walking coaching staff as well, which maybe it's
possible. I have no idea. I mean, like, who knows what the ownership's telling them? I don't know which direction everyone's being pulled in. But they're probably looking to draft a quarterback at number 1 next year. That's
one of the things I'm surprised about is Panthers market consensus rank 30th. All right. And I know you don't like that you were bullying me last week about my Panthers division bet at plus 4,000.
Okay.
Drive quality actually a market high on the Panthers at 25th. No one else really even close. The next closest is 538 at 27th, but pretty much everyone else, ESPN 31st, PFF 30th, Football Outsiders 28th, Impredict 30th.
Yeah. I mean,
you cannot ask for a worse kind of first game for Darnold to come in and play against the Broncos defense, the Broncos secondary. And I've seen a couple charters post this, this week, talking about how the Broncos defense has not been as elite as it was over the first 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season, over the last 3, 4, 5 weeks of the season, which kind of makes sense. They're kind of like falling out of it. There's like a bunch of effort and emphasis potentially early in games, and then it kind of falls flat later in games. But nonetheless, that was not an easy matchup. He performed admirably, not great. He didn't light it up, but he didn't fall flat on his face. Kept the team in the game, allowed the defense to really dictate, and didn't throw the game away. And that was like the main thing you wanted to see. And I think that's enough in this division to flirt at least with the division.
Yeah, they might be able to flirt. I mean, I'd be surprised, but it can happen. I mean, look, here's the point. I think our draft quality has them high because we have them as the 11th best defense. And like Sam Darnold probably can't get much worse than the production they were getting from Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
So, and as you say, he could play well in short stints, and like, look, he can at least get the ball into DJ Moore's hands, and like, who knows? No one wants to win the NFC South right
now. So who's your call for that? If you don't like the Panthers, then you must like the Bucs.
I guess. I mean, we'll see what the Saints can do.
Keep giving the Saints chances, and it's like,
just no one wants to win. That's the point. Yeah, I mean, 40-1 is probably good value in hindsight. But I don't know,
because I know drive quality's been relatively high on the Saints for the last last 5, 6, 7 weeks. but continuing to drip lower and lower. We're still at a market high on them at 14th. Market consensus rank is 22nd. And that definitely kind of meets what I feel like how the average sports bettor would probably power rank the Saints
I'm
right
curious
now.
to see if they can finally get healthy or at least healthier as the season goes along. Look, I'm almost hoping that the Bucks sneak out of this division, and because the market still loves the Bucks, what they're 8th right now, get them a home playoff game. Let me bet the wild card team, and that'll be my best profit.
No, I mean, betting against the Bucks has just been, again, the teams
that
we have been, betting against the teams that we have been uber bearish on from the start of the season has been super profitable. In fact, just even from a circuit perspective, we should have just leaned in against all the teams that we have very high confidence in being bad and just betting the other sides of them.
Yeah. It's true.
And that would have been
just like bet the Colts, the Raiders. It's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
I really don't know what's going on with the Bucks here. Like from a market consensus power ranking perspective. So Drive Quality has the Bucks 22nd. All right. Remember, we were way early on the fade of the Packers as well.
Yep.
And we even still power ranked them at 26. But so we got Bucks at 22nd. Market consensus power rank is 9th with a very low standard deviation, a standard deviation of less than 1 spot.
Yeah.
And that's because everyone has the Bucks ranked 11th or 10th.
Yeah. Nah, I
don't get it.
I mean, we've been saying it for weeks, but like you're still chasing production. Like they had that
but it's
game.
Week 13 now too.
They had it's Week 13. It's crazy, but like they had that game against Seattle where they looked good. I mean, you're asking me to explain it. I've been every single week since week 3 been talking about why are the Bucks here? Why are the Bucks here? Why are the Bucks here? And look, like my alt line play of the year was Seahawks Bucks. It didn't work out. But also I made an insane amount of money betting the Browns last week.
Yeah.
And I've just been coming on week in and week out just talking about it. I think the Bucks are fraudulent.
Yeah. And again, there's always going to be one-offs that you can't possibly potentially be right in.
But if you're clinging to that, because that's really the real assumption is like, oh, I'm hanging on to the Bucks as like potentially being good, and I'll use this as like a cherry picked, data point to say this is why they can be the team I think they are. Right? It's just not. It's ignoring kind of the fundamental issues we've been saying for weeks now that have just been plaguing the Bucks and aren't going away anytime soon because they're fundamental.
What about Lions? All right, so Drive Quality is near a market high at 17th. Market consensus power rank is 26th. Pretty high standard deviation of 5 spots. ESPN, PFF, 538 all has them 25th, 26th, 27th ranked. They're getting healthier. DJ Chark has come back. He's been back for a couple weeks, but his snap count is increasing. Caught a couple passes, caught a touchdown in the Thanksgiving game. Is Jameson Williams ever coming back?
I think he's got a shot next week.
Because, I mean, just him coming back, again, just as a potential distraction, can, again, open things up. I mean, we liked, again, the offensive play calling.
Definitely like the OC, Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the Lions is they're still the worst defense in the league. Our Draft Quality has them as 32nd.
What's about it's 32nd. Gotcha. Because I was going to say, what I really want to look at too is rate of change.
Right.
So like I know in finance specifically, when you're looking at trying to capture under and overvalued securities and trying to get ahead of trends, you're really not ever looking at absolute values of pretty much anything. You're looking at rates of change. You're trying to assess, where is something kind of going from here. But yeah, given that the Lions are 32nd, there's really nowhere to go lower or potentially.
The gap has certainly shrunk, but at the same time, I think that more points to they can succeed against teams that shoot themselves in the foot, right, on the defensive side of the ball. But like if they go up in a matchup with a good offense, like it's not happening for them.
Yeah.
And likewise, their offense has been really pretty good, with the exception of like a couple of weeks mixed in, where they got like destroyed by the Patriots. And everyone wrote them off. If you remember, we were talking about them as consensus 32nd best team in the league just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we were like, our draft quality has them higher. They're not the 32nd best team in the league. Yeah, I think it's somewhere between where our drive quality has it and where the rest of the market does, which is like a team that can win because their offense is fine, but the defense is still a major issue for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, to close on our consensus market power ranks, we're just looking at the year-to-date changes. So how have these teams kind of market views of their power rank changed over the course of the year? And we can see some of the biggest downgrades of the season were all those teams that we were kind of some of the most bearish theses on. Bucks, Colts, Rams, definitely had that thesis around the Broncos. Chargers is definitely surprising.
Yeah, Chargers surprising, but that I feel like is a little more excusable because of the slew of injuries.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, most of those teams we've been selling.
And then from the opposite side of the spectrum, Jets. I mean, this was one that we didn't necessarily agree on in the preseason, but I know you really saw upside in the Jets this season. And right there, they're one of the most upgraded teams over the course of the year. And if you really like, even the Cowboys is a little bit distorted because of the Dak Prescott injury, Cooper Rush. So really the most upgraded team this year is the Jets.
Yeah.
And a team that, you went in with a bullish thesis on.
Right. I know that's interesting. And I'm still hanging on to some crazy long shot. I've got a 250-1 Jets Super Bowl ticket. We'll see. We'll see how that one plays out. But yeah, I mean, look, it's been a surprising year, and we're 13. We're 12 weeks in already, and there's still a bunch of uncertainty, surprises, and like I don't know how the next 5 weeks are going to finish. A lot's going to change. That's the only thing I know.
Yeah. And I think there's going to be some good opportunity to continue to look at futures.
Oh, yeah.
Again, something like I did with the Panthers. Again, it's a super long shot, but it's a small investment. It's a moonshot. And there's opportunity because you look at the standard deviation of the top 5-6 teams, and they're all some of the lowest. So we talked about this in the previous, is like the very top, the best teams, there's pretty much consensus agreement about which teams are the best, which teams are the worst. But as we've seen as the season has progressed, in fact, those standard deviations should have been increasing, in fact, because we're starting to see more and more cracks in kind of all these teams, except for kind of classic Chiefs start off the season, again, with a lot of potential questions around them, and then kind of surging into the end of the season. But they still have their own weaknesses, and they're definitely still vulnerable and can be taken out.
Yeah, but still probably the best.
Still probably the best. All right, so let's move into NFL Week 13 on Thursday. Bills at Patriots. Patriots plus 3.5 at home. 43.5 is the total. This is actually a pretty decent Thursday night game. Pressure has been coming down on the Bills, so more and more kind of support on Patriots. From a DraftKings perspective, purportedly 77% of the bets coming in on Bills, 23% on Patriots. How are you thinking about this one?
It's a tricky spot only because I want to like the Bills long term. I think our numbers have it right as that they're as the best team, but I'm concerned about Josh Allen's elbow. I really am. He has not been the same player the past couple of weeks. That I'm not really sure what to make of it. In a like the Patriots also were really good on defense, and then like in a spot you'd expect them to succeed, like against Kirk Cousins in prime time, who struggles with interior pressure, and like they got none of it. They failed to shut down Justin Jefferson. It's a spot for me to bet live. I just don't have. There are too many competing factors before the game starts. I'll be looking to bet live, and I will just note for the good folks here, Ramondre Stevenson live props are super attractive if the Patriots are finding themselves behind. He's earned a 33% target share when the Patriots are trailing, which is the second highest target share in the league. Damian Harris is out. The rushing prop is basically priced for a season-long average right now. I probably like the pregame. I really like it if the Patriots fall behind and the prop doesn't adjust.
I like that. That's a good call out. Definitely eyeing Ramondre Stevenson live props, especially those. You're saying the receiving catches?
Yeah.
That looks juicy. I don't know. From my perspective, this is, again, the market continues to kind of warm up on the Patriots. Downgraded 1 spot on a week-to-week basis, upgraded 7 spots on a year-to-date basis. Market consensus rank 13th, playing the number 1 team, almost a consensus number 1 team. I understand, there's the potential Josh Allen banged up kind of injury elbow issues, but I would say I like the Bills minus 3.5.
Yeah.
I want to think that whatever Josh Allen's dealing with, it's going to get better over time. That's at least what it seemed like it was going to be when they were first talking about it, when he first experienced the injury, that, he could potentially be out 3 or 4 weeks, so now it's been about 3 weeks. And so you think that even if he had been out, this is the time when he would have been coming back. And for that reason, I feel like, 5-6 weeks ago, what would this price have been?
6.5.
6? Yeah. So yeah, I like the Bills.
That's fair. Yep. I can get on board with that.
Jets, Vikings, Jets in Minnesota +3 over under 44.5. This total seems high to me. I'm not expecting at all a type of Mike White performance that we saw last week versus the Bears. Again, doesn't mean that he has to be absolute trash or he's going to play completely miserable, but I definitely expect more of a down-to-earth, lackluster performance. It's not even the fact that the Vikings are necessarily obviously a great defense or anything, but again, it's just that was prime situation for him to come in.
For sure.
And I think you start to see a little bit of that come back. I probably like the Vikings here.
Yeah. What's giving me a bit of pause against the Vikings is their pass defense has really collapsed. The past bunch of weeks, they're a bottom 5 unit. And we could see some more Mike White success here because of that. In which case, I definitely don't like the under total. I think it's a matter of who pushes the game and who's pushing the pace. Right? If the Jets can come out to a lead, utilize the short passing game, which is what Mike White used to do, lean on the running backs, it seemingly doesn't matter who they're plugging in. They're having success right now. In that case, maybe the under's a bit attractive. I just see this as a classic Minnesota Vikings game, which is it's going to end up in one score one way or another.
Yeah. So basically, if they fall behind,
if they fall behind, they'll come back.
Yeah.
Cousins does that well. I'm super intrigued about the Sauce Gardner, Justin Jefferson matchup. That's another angle to possibly have pause on the Vikings, but they're the better team here. Let's not delude ourselves. Again, lots of competing factors. I don't have such a strong lean one way or another before the game.
Also, what I want to keep also top of mind as we go through these matchups as well is some of these alt lines as well. So because again, you're basically just again betting on, all right, there's this particular game script that has this probability of materializing, and if it does materialize, then it pays off to lean into one of these alt lines. And one of the ones that I wish that, I don't know if you did, but it makes perfect sense as not only in hindsight, but definitely pregame. And it's something I wish I would have had exposure to, but was betting Jets alt lines versus the Bears.
Yeah.
In the sense of if that game script plays out, then the Jets are going to win by definitely more than 6.
I did something similar, which is combine a player prop and Jets alt spread. And I said, like, if the Jets are covering the alt spread, it's going to come through Mike White. Means he's having success against a bad Bears passing defense. And I hit that last week. Unfortunately, we don't have props available. We're recording this on Wednesday night. But that's certainly an angle to take. And like we can have a pretty good guesstimate of like what the lines are going to be. And that's something I'll be on the lookout for all weekend. And I'll point them out now too.
And that's why even going back to Patriots Bills, like I feel like betting Patriots -3 plus 207. Okay. And then betting Bills minus, man, I feel like this is giving you
here's a better way to do it.
These are low prices for such huge spreads.
Yeah. So here's a better way to do it using our friend of the same game parlay. Right? What's the scenario in which the Bills win and Josh Allen doesn't have at least an okay passing game?
Yeah, well, probably because Mac Jones sucks. That's what I would see, that the Bills potentially blow the Patriots out, like, or at least win by margin, because it's not necessarily like the Bills are being super effective offensively per se, but it's more or less the Patriots offense is really struggling.
Okay, so let's get a game line, whatever it is, team scoring props, if you like it. Patriots like under 20.5 or something.
Yeah,
you can get Bills. What you like it, like -5.5?
I would take it deeper.
7.5?
9.5.
9.5. Bills 9.5. Patriots under 20.5 plus 250.
See, this is just like what I'm like curious about is Bills -7.5. It's only plus 158.
Yeah. On draft.
Whereas Patriots -3 is plus 207.
Yeah.
And they're not going to tie. So it's like if the Bills don't win by 3, then like the next scenario is like 6-7.
Yeah.
Or the vice versa the other way is then losing by 3.
Right. There's definitely a room for the Polish middle there. And I don't have enough of a read on this game to be comfortable making that bet, but I do. In
fact, also with the Jets Vikings alt line, again, maybe you're talking about, maybe we do get at least another kind of good Mike White game out, right? So you look at your Jets 5.5 plus 240.
But that's, Jets 5.5 plus 240. Again, give me some Mike White passing yards. We're going to get that up to 500.
Yeah.
That's the play.
Yeah, I like that. So now that is a good bet construction. All right, Broncos +8 on the road versus the Ravens, over under a very low 38.5. When we looked at our short-term value signal, kind of looks at the pricing, the market power ranking of InPredict versus the team's kind of broader consensus market power ranking, looking at the difference, got to give you a sense of, is this team being kind of overly discounted, or does it have an overly adjusted premium based on like the specific matchup at hand? When you look at it from that perspective, saying the Broncos are actually the number one team that's being overvalued right now, which would suggest then to basically slam the Ravens. And we haven't seen like a great offensive performance from the Ravens for quite some time now. They kind of continue to look clunky. They can't close games. There's like all these people out there like, oh, the Ravens could be like 11-0 because they've had a lead in like every single game, almost a double-digit lead in every single game, and they keep blowing it in the fourth quarters. But this is a potential game where, especially if that broader Broncos defensive trend of the market's still pricing it as elite, but it's kind of getting worse and worse week by week, that potentially this could be a game where, you can lean into either a Ravens alt spread, looking at, Ravens minus 13 plus 154, 13.5, 161, or lean into an alt under in the fact that, again, this is going to be one of those just really, really ugly games again. But the Broncos aren't going to be able to do anything on either side, actually.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I want to see if Jerry Jeudy's back for this game. I think that does make at least a marginal difference, but like the Broncos are really bad. They've seemingly Russell Wilson's lost the locker room. It's not a place I want to be betting on them. With that said, like just because of the nature of Russell Wilson's play, like he's gonna be taking a bunch of deep shots if he happens to connect on 2 or 3. That's always the tails risk. But I mean, like I've been betting against Russell Wilson now for weeks.
Yeah,
it's dreadful.
The other thing is too is, I've not been very hot on the Ravens at all. I know Drive Quality has liked the Ravens. It's kind of like basically priced them right along with market. In fact, we're dead on with market right now. Drive Quality ranked 7th. Market Consensus Power ranked 7th. A relatively low standard deviation. Football Outsiders at a market high on the Ravens at ranking them the number 2 team. It's just every time I watch them, I mean, they do not pass the eye test for me as far as actually looking like a good team. I know that, it's not all falling on Lamar Jackson's shoulders. Players are dropping passes. He doesn't have anyone to throw to. Again, injuries in amongst all his running backs. No J.K. Dobbins, and the defense certainly hasn't played as well as it has kind of in the past. And so for that reason, maybe I would be like, again, maybe somewhat skeptical in the fact that, maybe the Broncos are mispriced, that they should be priced even worse than this. But on the other side of the coin, I'm not nearly as high, at least from a personal perspective, on a team like the Ravens.
Right. And I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, just like the lack of receiving options is like eventually going to catch up to you.
Yeah.
I'm with you on the long term. On the outlook, I can't bet either side of this game because of what you just outlined on the Ravens side and just how bad the Broncos have been.
Yeah, that's fair. Commanders, Commies at the Giants. Commies minus 2.5, over under 40. Market really selling off on the Giants.
That leads me to buy Giants here.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Especially, I mean, you look at it's real sell 27th. And if you look at kind of the turnover luck, it's been a lot of Commies luck in recent weeks. And like the Giants they've been fine over the course of the year. Like, were they a 7-2 team? No. But like they're still, 16th in EPA. Like the team is still average. I think the Commies profile looks very different if they don't get a bunch of turnovers in recent weeks. And I think the game narrative has totally changed. If like a couple of these one-score games, I don't know, like the Falcons didn't throw an interception at the goal line. I think it all looks very different if their records are not both winning, but like the Commies lost, 2 of these one-score games that they've been in every single league.
Yeah. And again, Heineke's not, again, he's the quarterback, and he can get that superficial credit for leading this team to all these kind of consecutive wins that they've been kind of piling up. But he's not necessarily playing that well. Now, he's not playing like bad in the sense of like Carson Wentz was, putting them in like vulnerable positions, throwing very important interceptions, getting sacked in very compromising situations in the game. He's been able to avoid that, but it's not like he's like racking up yards, racking up stats, looking really great. He's like prime kind of just game manager.
Yeah, and he's like the dude's still 38th out of 39th and in PFF grade, and he's like, what did he throw for like 150 yards last week? I'm not exactly looking to buy Taylor Heinicke. It's not a screaming buy. And like, yes, the Giants are banged up. I'm just not sure that the Commies are the team that can take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And
the Giants put in a very admirable effort versus the Giants. I mean, versus the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah. Game looks very different. If they're, David Sills caught a touchdown that was taken off because of an ineligible man. Like, it was the right call, but like didn't actually have any effects on the play. Like, game looks very different.
Yeah. Time weighted average margin in that game for the Giants was just -2. So saying, I mean, this was basically a field goal game for the duration of it.
Yep.
And this was the game that they were expected to get absolutely smashed.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see off a long week how the offensive line, if they're healthier. At this moment, I definitely have a lean towards the Giants.
Yeah. All right. Titans +4.5 at Philadelphia, over under 44.5.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll just echo what I said earlier. Like, the Titans have basically been, coasting off bad teams. The other thing is, like, there's this narrative that, oh, Derrick Henry is still so good. This rushing attack is, like, still terrific. That, like, really hasn't been the case at all. I mean, I think they're, like, 24th in rush EPA. Yeah, they're 24th in rush EPA. Their success rate, 25th. Like, this has not exactly been a good rushing offense by any stretch of the imagination. Derrick Henry's still an opportunity cost problem. They're still giving him the ball way too much. The Eagles should have Jordan Davis back in this game. Resident expert Dan, help us out here. But like, I'm not even sure, even if he's out, that Derrick Henry is going to be like the engine of this offense. It hasn't been a good run game. And like, I think that's like the classic handicap that's being built into this price. And I just totally reject that. I don't think the Titans pass defense will be able to stop Jalen Hurts, especially if he's running the ball again. He had like barely any, I'm forgetting the exact numbers, barely any design rushes basically the past like 5 or 6 weeks. And then he had like 12 over the past couple. Like, they're running him again. I don't think the Titans are going to be able to stop it. I like the Eagles here for sure.
62% of the handle, 56% of the bets on the Titans in this. Do you know where the Eagles stack from a defensive EPA perspective? Because I know that's obviously been one of their vulnerabilities, especially as those injuries have piled up, and where they've been able to get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the handicap that I think is really driving some of that action.
Yeah, exactly. Which is meaning, okay, pass defense is basically tied for number one. Rush defense is fourth worst. I'm just not sure that the Titans are the team to take advantage of it. As crazy as that sounds, and I think that's exactly what's getting priced in. It's like, oh, Titans, Derrick Henry, top 5 rushing attack. I don't think that's true. That's not what the Titans are this year. They've got a really banged up offensive line, and Derrick Henry's getting pretty old. Like, he's leading the league in rushing yards, but that's product of volume, not efficiency.
And also, the Titans are ripe to take advantage of them because, I mean, market consensus power rankings has them ranked as a top 10 team. Drive quality has them closer to 16th. Yeah. So that's something where the market is definitely buying in to the Titans, reevaluating them from a fundamental perspective. We talked about even we are, but not that much.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking from like bottom 10 team to like back. I like the Eagles here.
Yeah, I like the Eagles here as well. Browns, a full touchdown favorite on the road. Deshaun Watson returning to Houston versus the Texans, over under 47.
Yeah. Good teaser leg.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, I don't think the Texans are trying to win. I think they'll make sure they end up losing this one. I don't know enough about what the team's going to look like with Deshaun Watson, what Deshaun Watson's going to look like to bet this pregame. I don't know why I'd pay the price to not learn more information. But I do have confidence they'll come out of this. Just the Texans don't want to win.
Yeah, I think this is stay away for my part. Just too many questions, too many variables. Again, like, I would like to look into Deshaun Watson rush props when they come out. If they're already pricing in exactly what kind of my handicap of how Deshaun Watson might perform, then I'm just going to lay off. But if it seems like it's potentially ignoring that, then I think that's something that I might lean into pregame. build some sort of SGP around that. I imagine everything Deshaun Watson, because there's going to be so much hype around him returning to this game, there's going to be premiums baked into him. So,
yeah,
probably will.
Note.
Wow. Okay, Jacksonville +1 now.
It's back to +1 again?
On the road versus the Lions, over under 51.5. I mean, I know the Lions' defense is bad, but I mean, the Jaguars' offense has not ever looked truly explosive outside of that Chargers game in the first 2-3 weeks of the season. Jags' defense is tough. Lions are definitely more explosive at home. And again, getting healthier, more players on the field. We like their play calling. I think I still like Jags here, though. I mean, we bet the Jags, I don't know, probably close to 10 times this season.
Yeah. The poor record, but probably plus profit just because of the alts.
Yes. I like the Jags again here.
I really like the Jags here. And for all the reasons you just outlined, and like the Lions play a ton of man coverage, and the best team in the NFL against man coverage, Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that's
that angle.
That's a key angle for this game when we're talking about things on the extreme, right? An extreme man team and a team that is extremely good against man. That really matters. That's a matchup angle that matters, and I think it just adds to all the kind of fundamental factors you just outlined.
70% of the bets on DraftKings on the Lions. People buying the Lions. 55% of the handle. Good, purportedly with an asterisk.
Good showing on Thanksgiving. Also, this was an interesting angle I heard on Take the Points. That Arjun was talking about how in the Dan Campbell era, after like these kind of crushing losses, they've come out completely flat in the next week, and like lost games by 25. And it happened like 2 or 3 times last year. It already happened this year. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see the Jaguars steamroll in their spots to buy alts. I'd probably like Trevor Lawrence because of the man angle I just outlined. So like Lawrence basically at the lowest prop they'll offer passing yards. Give me with some Jaguars alts. Let it ride.
I like that. Also, just the expectations for someone like Trevor Lawrence at the beginning of the season were so high that he couldn't meet them. And so now there's been kind of a reversal. And again, they've lost a lot of close games, a lot of bonehead mistakes. I mean, we're very well aware of it. And I'm sure many else are out there as well, as Jaguars are a pretty hot preseason team, but especially leaning into that Trevor Lawrence narrative, which is not materialized. But over the last 3-4 weeks, he's definitely been playing much better, almost kind of like in a sneaky way, not doing it in super flashy, but he's been effective, been efficient. And that's another thing, what we talked about a lot in our preseason previews as well, is you don't want to be playing the Jaguars in like the last quarter of the season.
Yeah.
Because that's when we think they're probably going to be actually at their best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that you want to play them early in the season, in fact. Take advantage of some of the immaturity, some of the growing pains. And so this actually seems like a perfect matchup for the Jaguars really to take advantage of a vulnerable defense.
Yeah. Based on this conversation, I'm curious. Where do you think Trevor Lawrence ranks in total EPA? What number?
Like on a season-to-date basis?
Mm-hmm. I'll give it to you.
14th.
7th. 7th best. It's really his season.
And I would love to see actually what it is over the last 5 weeks.
Yeah. His season was up, 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 up. He went down. Everyone sold it off and was like, we thought we were onto something. Really, we're not. And exactly like I said on that game trade during the Raiders game, everyone had sold off completely. And that's exactly the time to buy.
Yeah, that actually could have been the terminal bottom.
Yeah. And like It's pretty cool that I called it out. But I think that's almost exactly the point of something we talked a lot about during the offseason, which is like keeping thread of the long term and seeing like we had good reason to think Trevor Lawrence is going to improve. We had good reason to kind of form a firm prior. And like just because there's a bunch of short-term noise that happened like between weeks 6 and 9, with a bunch of fluky stuff I'll add, which is part of the handicap, and we know that's going to happen with the Jaguars, but it's every bit as true for the Lions. But back to the point, we have a firm handicap, and like don't lose sight of that long-term view because of a couple like noisy few weeks. Like stick to that view. It's playing out.
Yep.
Jack.
Yep. Two preseason darlings here in Jaguars, Lions. In fact, if you were at the beginning of the season to kind of zoom forward and to say, hey, in week 13, Jaguars, Lions, it's going to be a pick 'em. You probably wouldn't actually you wouldn't necessarily even deny that, but you'd probably think it's probably because they were both playing awesome.
Yeah.
And instead they've both put in like a lot of clunkers.
Yeah.
But still, have shown that upside just hasn't fully materialized.
Yep.
Steelers +1 at the Falcons. Over under 42. Steelers, again, one of the biggest upgraded teams over the last couple weeks. We're basically power ranked as a bottom 2 team, are approaching a top 20 team from the market perspective. How do you think about this?
Pass.
As just I think I do like the Steelers here. Again, I feel like it could be late, like you're buying late.
It's also like the Falcons, I think, are a team that everyone's written off. But like they're still pretty good. The same team they've been the whole time. And I think that might be enough against the Steelers. Slow game. If they run the ball effectively, they could win a 20-20-er.
Yep.
I
could see it. I just
bad. And like I don't know, I don't have confidence buying the Steelers at the top. Like what? You're gonna bet on Kenny Pickett after 2 good weeks against some bad teams? I mean, the Bengals aren't bad, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't know if this is necessarily the game to like prove to stifle the Kenny Pickett momentum.
It was just a weird game script. It's like this is the spot. This is exactly the spot they come back down to earth and lose.
This is not exactly the spot. Like, there's nothing to say like, oh, this is like the perfect spot for the Steelers to come back down to earth. Because there's nothing even to say like this is necessarily even a bad spot.
I don't know. I think the Falcons are probably pretty underrated relative to market expectation. What we have it as the Falcons is the 26th best team. I don't think that's right. I think they're 22nd, 21st. They're a team who like doesn't have a great long-term outlook, but like they're still producing, they're still playing close games. What are they, 5-7, almost 6-6? It's just not it's not a spot I'm comfy with.
Mm-hmm. And well, we're looking at again, the short-term value signal, looking at the teams that are underrated. This would say to buy the Steelers in this slot. Given that in predict power ranking, the Steelers 24th this week, whereas broader consensus market power ranking suggests the Steelers are more like the 20th best team, which we don't necessarily agree with that. Drive quality has the Steelers still as the 31st best team from a drive-by-drive perspective. So I definitely get your hesitation. 55% of the bets are coming in on the Steelers. So pretty split. Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels late if you wanted to come in to buy the Steelers now, especially at a pick 'em. But this is a game that, especially live, I probably wouldn't hesitate to buy the Steelers, especially if the Falcons get kind of an early score.
You're right.
All right, Packers at Bears in Chicago. Packers -4.5. I know the look-ahead line was -1. I think with the anticipation that Justin Fields could probably still potentially play. Total 43.5. The Packers, I feel like, again, have looked better on a week-by-week basis. Still not nearly good, of course. Bears hung around with the Jets for about a half. Trevor Siemian put in 1 or 2 good drives. What do you think about this one?
How healthy is Aaron Rodgers? I have no idea. Certainly, if Fields is playing, I like the 4.5. But the Bears have they've lost now. Like Roquan Smith, they lost. Oh, I forget the other player they traded.
Yeah,
I don't know why I'm blanking. Another defensive player. They just lost Eddie Jackson. They just lost Darnell Mooney. If Justin Fields isn't playing, like really all the talent's been stripped off this team. That I just can't see a way to bet the Bears. And the Packers have been fine, but like 4.5 margin for a team that's really struggled to score points is a little bit tough to swallow.
Yeah. Normally, again, being a Bears fan, I just blindly bet the Packers anytime they're playing the Bears. But the Packers are different this year, and the Bears are still bad. But yeah, especially when this was 1, if this was Packers 1, I would love
Robert
Packers.
Quinn. That's what I was thinking of.
Robert Quinn, yeah. Which he hasn't, really done that much.
No, never fool us.
Is there still a possibility of Justin Fields actually playing?
I would assume not, based on the line.
Yeah.
And if he does, the line's going to move.
Mm-hmm. Nah, I mean, I probably even at the 4.5. I like the Packers. If there's any potential to get the Packers live at plus money or close to pick 'em, I would like the Packers. I think Packers potentially alt line. I know they have not really kind of blown out any team all season, maybe.
That doesn't mean it
probably
can't be.
Last time was the Bears.
Yeah.
In Lambeau, like week 2. But there is a little bit of a bias coming through here. That's for sure. But I can't touch the Bears. Cannot touch the Bears.
Cannot touch the Bears right now.
No. Dolphins +4 in San Francisco over under 46.5. I know you have a lot to say about this one.
Yeah, I like the Dolphins here. The Dolphins implied point total is 20.5 right now. A little bit juice to the over, but not much. Which suggests, and not even suggests, it's telling us that the market is really buying into the Niners defense, which I think is misguided at best. First off, as a general principle, if there is an offense that is elite, and I don't say elite lightly, bet the elite offense, even if they're going up against a good or elite defense. The matchup doesn't really matter. I think that's especially true when you look at kind of how the Dolphins are winning, which it isn't like they are very good in one area, right? They're really, really good against man. And if you're a team that runs a ton of zone, you can stop it. But like with Tua, they're like best against man. They're best against zone. They're best under pressure. They're best with a clean pocket. They're best against the blitz. All factors, they've been terrific, which is suggesting that the matchup's not really going to be relevant here. And I think some people have kind of pointed to, right, as you can see in that first comment, the fact that they don't have a left tackle. And I think my response is basically that, like, what's been so incredible about Tua's season is that he has an extremely low time to throw. It's only 2.5, which is tied for the third lowest in the league, yet he's throwing the ball really deep. And that kind of mitigates the need for a good offensive line for getting the ball out so quickly. Like, sure, if Nick Bosa is wreaking havoc in 2 seconds or less, like nobody can ever win. But maybe that's an angle to bet live. But I don't see why the market is pressing in such a kind of premium on the Niners defense. Dolphins have scored 30 plus in basically every game. The one clunker was to his first game back after that like terrifying concussion. I'm really willing to let that one go. By the way, our circle pick, quite frustrating, but the clunker then. But I'm really willing to let that go and say, like, this offense has been elite. I'm gonna fade any pressing out of the Niners defense.
Have you seen any bettors of, quote, influence having a view on this game?
I have not.
Yeah.
Maybe.
75% of the bets on DraftKings on the Dolphins. 67% of the handle. Thinking about, if your thesis kind of plays out, so how are you actually expressing that?
So I'm gonna bet it. Yeah, I'm gonna bet it two ways, which is one, Dolphins 2.5 and over 44.5. I got it at plus 400. I think it's already down to like 390 or 380. And the second way I'm going to express that is we know how the Dolphins want to win, and that's by passing the football. Give me a little Tua prop and the Dolphins. Hold on, I think you're gonna have to go into the same game parlay feature, yeah, which is where you want to be anyway to get the boosted odds.
What about Dolphins points?
That's fine. I would just rather I flirted with that, but I think the Niners are still good enough on offense. Like they're still going to score a couple times. That I'd rather you get much juicier odds with the game total.
Yeah, man, Dolphins 2.5 gets you the plus 200 right there. Over 44.5 gets you to 390.
That's juicy
currently. Also, I mean, I don't know if I would. Yeah, I mean, still kind of like a key number there. Yeah, I think that's a right way to think about constructing it.
And I'm going to get really crazy when I go 5.5 and 2 passing yards. It's going to get like 900 or whatever. I cashed a 700 with Jacoby Brissett in the Browns last week. I just like fade the defense narrative. That's really what's going on here.
Kind of similar to the handicap that you had for Chiefs Niners.
Yeah. By the way, it's exactly the same handicap.
Yeah.
And like the Chiefs haven't, the Niners haven't really been tested since that game, and they gave up 44.
Yeah. And also, even if the Dolphins are dealing with offensive line issues, Bosa and the Niners are into his face right away. Again, don't you think McDaniel is smart enough, obviously, to realize this, to game plan around this, that the offense is perfectly designed to get rid of the ball as fast as possible?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. They have an extremely low time to throw. He's getting it out real quick. That eliminates kind of the how much your offensive line really matters.
Mm-hmm. And also that Dolphins offensive line weakness right now versus Niners defensive line strength is well documented, well cited. Yep. That's more than priced into this line.
Absolutely.
As of right now.
Always a Shanahan premium also.
Yeah, that's also true. Although I think there is increasingly more and more so a Mike McDaniel premium.
That's true
as well. And also, I'm not totally bought into Mike McDaniel, what he's doing yet. This is like classic first-year head coach, starts off hot, things are going right, and everyone is like ready to crown him as like the next great thinker in football.
Yeah, this is a point I should have made while I was giving my little rant, which is that like they seem like a tier 2 team when you look at like our drive quality or like any efficiency metric, but if you just like take the values of the Tua games, they're just as good as the Chiefs.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a key point. And like McDaniel might be priced in or whatever it is, but like, and we could be like saying who's good in a vacuum and who's not, and that's an interesting football question. But like, I care about production, and production right now, the Dolphins with Tua have been the best offense in the league, or like one beat of the Chiefs. That's what the numbers say. I'm willing to lean into that, especially like so long as Hill and Waddle are healthy. I don't see any reason to fade that.
Right. And the short term kind of value signal would say that the Niners are actually overrated in this spot, which would be another kind of buy on the Dolphins there. Seahawks -7.5 at LA Rams, over under 41. Who's quarterback for the Rams? It's gonna be Bryce Perkins again.
Probably.
Very hard to bet the Rams. They put in a spirited effort versus the Chiefs, but I think, like we talked about last week too, it wasn't necessarily a game where the Chiefs necessarily needed to really press the pedal. They were in control of that game pretty much, the whole time. Even if, they were kind of only up by a touchdown for long stretches of the game. Because it was just it's like if the Chiefs want to extend this lead, then they can. It's kind of just like toying.
They knew. We knew this game. That was like everyone knew that was coming before the game. Yeah, I mean this seems like another good teaser leg with my Browns one. The Rams are so bad right now. They might be 31st. They're without Aaron Donald now. They really just have no talent. I don't know what else there is to say other than this team's bad. Straight up bad. The Seahawks are fine. Like the
Rams downgraded 3 spots last week, downgraded 17 spots year to date. Drive quality has them 29th, and market rate 28th.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Seahawks. I like the Seahawks to cover that teaser leg.
62% of the bets coming in on the Seahawks. Yeah, I don't have a strong view on this game. See if you get like a nice bounce back, really strong performance from the Seahawks, but not necessarily confident of it. Maybe the Rams get a little bit sneaky here down the stretch. People teams starting to write them off. Still division game. I wouldn't probably touch Seahawks -7.5.
No, I like them to cover the teaser leg.
In fact, I probably like the over here, 41. I think the Rams showed that they can move the ball a little bit. And the Seahawks defense is obviously not elite, not good. Rams defense is not good. Seahawks can score. I definitely like the over here. I like the over, 41.
Betting the over in a game with Bryce Perkins and no talent as quarterback is gutsy. but I do understand the angle.
Chiefs Bengals. Chiefs -1.5 over under 53. Ooh, this is a juicy game. I didn't even know this game was happening this week.
Oh yeah, live trading galore out here.
Oh yeah, this one's gonna be beautiful.
This I will add. It was not my first live bet I ever placed. That was the Texans Chiefs playoff game from January.
Oh, like when they're out like 21 zip or something?
January 2020. But this was the first game I was really live trading because it had just become legal in New York.
Yeah.
And I had a juicy middle live trading this game. Starting out with the Chiefs, getting the Bengals. Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have a similar style of game. And like we've said it all year of just like good offenses who can score quickly, offensive firepower, creates volatility. That's a live better's best friend. And that's what we're going to have here.
Yeah. This is going to be
just a fun game.
I don't know what it is necessarily right now, but I love that actually this is a late afternoon game too. So even so, you're going to have time, like as those late games are winding down, halftime of those early games can really start to look at what the SGP prices are looking at, do some builds on game trade. That'll definitely be.
That's going to be a fun game trade. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that one's going to be fun because I know even when we just racked up win after win after win after win in that Chiefs Niners game, it wasn't just the live bets that we were making, but it was a lot of kind of like SGPs and props that we had actually constructed prior to the game, leaning in to that thesis that the Niners defense isn't going to be nearly as good and Mahomes is still going to go off. And Mahomes was being priced like he wasn't going to go off.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we're getting with the Dolphins. And Tua.
Well, that is and that's a late afternoon game too.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh
my God. It's gonna be a glorious Sunday. We're so blessed.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's gonna be glorious. And also, this is a good game. Chargers at Raiders.
Yeah.
Chargers 1.5 over under 50.5. Both teams starting to show some life here in the last few weeks. Are you getting nervous
No.
about the Raiders season under bets that we have?
No. We'll lose to the Chargers in this spot.
Oh, so you're on the Chargers.
I'm on the Chargers here. I think Herbert is like actually healthy again, and Keenan Allen's back. They have sufficient weapons, I think, for the Chargers to play at the level they need to. And it seems to me like we're buying the Raiders at the top. Like coming off 3 wins. I haven't exactly, I mean, like they were great offensively last week. The defense is still a train wreck.
Yeah.
They weren't like convincing wins in beating the Broncos in overtime. As nice as that was for the bankroll. But look, I mean, ultimately this is more a one-sided play. That the Chargers are back healthy, and they're a far better team because they're being priced as the team that didn't have a healthy Justin Herbert and didn't have healthy weapons.
Yeah. I think this is going to be another really good game to trade live, especially since the Chargers have started off slow. I loved the Chargers last week versus the Cardinals. And I'm just so happy. In fact, I definitely give Dan credit as well because he was actually out there in the chat telling me, like, I was like articulating my thesis. And he was like, yeah, I think you should wait. I'm like, yeah, I think I should probably just wait too. And it turned out to be critical not to bet the Chargers early in that game, given that they only won by 1 point.
Yeah.
And that to wait. And you just got incredible prices. In fact, one of those missed triggers actually almost happened to me, which would have been actually great. I would have literally bought the bottom on the Chargers, but I thought I bet like $1,500 on the Chargers +9 because I was like trying to do the trade really fast, and so like I'm on there, I'm like, damn it, like I just put $1,500 on Chargers +9, in which I didn't. It turned out to actually it was just my 115. But even after it happened, I actually wasn't even that max. I'm like, it's probably a really good bet. So, in fact, and then 9.5 never showed up again. Like Chargers, like got a first down the next play, and that was the bottom.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. That's gonna be a good live. Wow, this is gonna be a great 4 o'clock slate for live betting.
Yeah, in fact, it's gonna actually maybe be too great, and the fact that I guess it's only 3 games. That's
no such thing as too great.
You can absorb that.
But
just like sometimes like too much kind of going on.
Too much going on.
You can't really lean into something like too much. And you kind of miss some things. All right, so Colts, but I think we can handle 3. I think we can handle 3. Just gonna have to ignore Seahawks, Rams. Colts, Cowboys. Colts on the road +11, 43.5. Sunday Night Football.
I think it's priced right. I mean, what I'd be curious to see is the Cowboys have started slow generally in games. If that line can like move down to 7, or we can get a like Colts first touchdown. Dan, I was wondering where our injury specialist has been, but that's good intel. I mean the Colts are flat. The Matt Ryan matchup against the Cowboys pass rush is, well, as big of a mismatch as we're going to have all year. The Cowboys play with pace when they go up with a lead. I guess I'm talking myself into Cowboys spread right here. I don't see how you can back the Colts. And I kind of like the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, something I've talked about even after that Vikings game was I don't trust the Cowboys. I'm not buying into the Cowboys. I'm not betting them double digits, even versus a banged up team like the Colts. I think the Colts have definitely shown enough life over the past couple of weeks since Matt Ryan's come back, since Jeff Saturday's taken over. And maybe that spark is kind of, you had a little bit of a bounce, and now it's kind of coming back down to reality and kind of demonstrating why they benched Matt Ryan to begin with. Maybe this is the game, and he's going to get absolutely destroyed by like Micah Parsons and the pressure of the Cowboys. So I wouldn't make an argument to bet the Colts, especially Dan talking about some of the defensive injuries that are piling up. But I just don't trust the Cowboys. Again, they just don't show up in games that you feel like that they should. Like, oh, this makes perfect sense why they should blow this team out, and then they don't, or they just sometimes lose. And they show up in like weird spots that you don't expect them to. I mean, everyone thought the Cowboys were going to destroy the Packers. They don't. In fact, they lost. Everyone thought the Cowboys were going to destroy the Giants, and they struggled the whole game, pretty much till the second half, pulled away a little bit, but still kind of always, that game was still relatively competitive. And I just don't trust them with these big lines. But I think, again, playing the tail scenario, though, is I'd much more be inclined to lay Cowboys minus 17.5 alt line rather than like Colts plus 4.5.
For sure. And I've actually cashed 2 straight weeks now, Cowboys alt lines combined with Prescott props. I'm not sure I'm going to go back to the Prescott.
But you're always sweating them out.
I'm always sweating them out. But it's been
getting them by like the hair of your teeth. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Monday Night Football closing. Saints plus 4 at the Bucks, over under 40.5. Auto Saints bet.
Yep.
I'm surprised actually it's this high, given just the history. I know the Bucks kind of waxed the Saints earlier this season, but historically kind of struggle, particularly versus Saints defense. And I know they're banged up, but the Bucks are also materially not the same team as they have been in the past either. This total seems potentially high as well. This is one where you could potentially lean, if the right game scripts, especially playing out, leaning into some of these big all unders, under 26.5, plus 600.
Yeah.
In fact, what is that? Do they even go that far?
That's a great question.
Under 28.5 is plus 440 currently. But man, especially like in Browns Bucks, if you get an early score or a couple early scores, and this blows out to above 50, I mean, then you lean into the all under 43.5 plus 285 plus 300. It really potentially be a nice moneymaker. But otherwise, I mean, I think Saints plus 4.
Yep.
Seems like a pretty easy one. Is there any props that you would play in this one?
I don't think so.
I know Saints, Dalton, Olave has been a moneymaker for you.
Yeah, of course. And I've played the Olave ones. That's in play but there's no reason to like why this week should be the spike week.
Yeah.
It's more to sell the Bucks offense. And that's like their efficiency. It's not even like Godwin receptions might be attractive. Also, like there's a history of Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore, and we have a big sample size of Marshawn Lattimore shutting down Mike Evans. So maybe I'll play some Chris Godwin props.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Good stuff. So that wraps up our NFL Week 13 betting market outlook. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you on Sunday, live betting the NFL Sunday slate. It's going to be an awesome one. So hopefully you'll be able to join us.
Join us.
Until then, we'll see you on Sunday. That's closing bell.